What up, my fellow Knicks fans? This is your guy Marcellus Ease, and we got a few things to talk about. Don't panic quite yet. There's a little confusion among the fan base of Frank Ntilikina. Where does he stand with the point guard position? Legendary announcer Walt Clyde Frazier kind of brought some things into light in the second preseason game, as Dave Fizdale so far, he's gone with a starting lineup of Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway Jr. at guard for the first two preseason games. But it is a sentiment throughout the fan base and through the media. What is the Knicks point guard situation? And we're pretty much going to also rectify where did all this confusion start from? Where did it stem from? So first, I want to get to what Walt Clyde Frazier said.
Foul. Now with Ntilikina, there's a lot of talk about he might be better at the two guard, although shooting is not his number one strength. He's improved. Where do you have Ntilikina in terms of his development? Should he be more of a point? Do you think he has a chance to be a better two guard?
I think too, Mike, because he doesn't really have the natural instinct to break down the defense.
Now, in today's NBA, it is very difficult. It's basically a point guard era right now that we're in. To get to a championship right now, or a high level of performance in the playoffs, you have to go up against teams that have point guards. The Kyrie Irving, the Stephen Curry, Chris Paul. These are teams, Russell Westbrook. These are teams that all have point guards. This is a point guard era right now. And, everyone can see with their eyes what Frank is. Frank is very large in size, very good defensive player, just raw talent off rip, just, coming off the draft. This guy is just like Shumpert. But he hasn't really displayed anything that tells you he's a point guard. The only reason it's in certain Knicks fans' heads that he is a point guard is that basically Phil Jackson told you he was a point guard. Now, going back to Phil Jackson, you have to understand that Phil Jackson runs the triangle offense. And in Phil Jackson's past, in the Chicago Bulls, he had Ron Harper, which he wasn't even a real point guard, to begin with. And then also when he was on the Lakers, for the Lakers run, he had Derek Fisher. Derek Fisher, once again, he wasn't an elite point guard or nothing special. The key thing about these guys, they knew how to play defense. And then once they passed the half court line in the start of a new possession, they quickly passed the ball. And then now if you look at Frank, that's what Frank does all the time. So Phil Jackson actually drafted the right player for the system that he was gonna, basically embark on the Knicks. Now, where did all this confusion come from? Now, remember, I'm not sure if you guys remember, after the 2017 season, the Knicks had another horrible season. After the last game, James Dolan, he had the option of picking up the last 2 years in Phil Jackson's contract. And what he had done is basically, he just picked it up the same night. He basically said, Phil Jackson, we're going to pick up your contract for the next 2 years. I wonder when in the hell did he even evaluate Phil Jackson, but they picked it up right away. So that would normally tell you, like, okay, the owner has confidence in, the team president to do his job. Okay. So the draft comes a month later, and then Phil Jackson chooses his guy, Frank. And then they basically break down what Frank is. He's kind of a combo guard, but, the Knicks are running triangle, so they don't really need a guard. And then literally a week later, Phil Jackson gets fired. So, but the fan base is still under the impression, oh, we drafted a guard. So this is where kind of all this confusion starts. And then, as the games go along, the brand new season starts. So people see that Frank, he doesn't really shoot. He doesn't really, even break down the defense. He doesn't really display that he's a guard. And then at the same time, Jeff Hornacek last season, we didn't really know what system we're running. We kind of had no identity. So the Knicks right now, they're under new ownership. They're under not new ownership. They're under a new president, a new coach. So this kind of signals to Frank, these guys didn't really pick you. They're running a completely different system. So, kudos to, Fizdale and the Knicks staff. They're basically not going to force this kid to be a point guard. even though half the fan base expectation is that we got a point guard, while the other half is like, yo, we need to trade for a point guard or figure out, maybe go get Kyrie, or, you know, that's where the sentiment for Kyrie Irving is coming from. It's like, hey, let's go get Kyrie. It's like, we really don't have a point guard right now. And, you know, they also further elaborated on this.
Thing is, they all have their strengths, things they do extremely well and things that they need to improve on. You know, Burke obviously can push the ball, gets it inside. The pace is terrific. Defensively, his size sometimes can be a problem, although he's really battling as a defender. Ntilikina clearly is the best defender of the three. In fact, he has a chance to be an elite defender.
And Mudiay should be the best all around, but he struggles.
Now, this is pretty much the Knicks' dilemma. Mudiay should be the good point guard out of Trey Burke and Frank Ntilikina. He should be the better point guard right now, but obviously he's not. He's not really efficient, not good, you know, not a good rim finisher. He doesn't really, you know, turns the ball over quite a few times, and defensively he doesn't make up for the other two mishaps that he has. Trey Burke is kind of small, you know, he can't really defend well, but he is an instant, you know, scorer, and he breaks down the defense. But and then finally we have Frank. Frank basically, he plays good defense, but he's not going to really break down the defense or look to score. So we kind of have a bunch of one-way players, but Mudiay, in a way, Mudiay is like a dud. He doesn't do anything good. So basically, this is the Knicks situation right now. And, you know, even with Fizdale, they're beginning to acknowledge this slowly, not to put any pressure on Frank. Let's continue with another soundbite.
Are fighting. David Fizdale's talked about his Knicks' good defensive sequence there, although LeVert makes a nice play. He's talked about there's no primary ball handler. He'll have two of them play at the same time, positionless basketball, but you still do need to find who's the guy that's going to direct the offense, especially at crunch time.
Yeah, you got to have a leader out there, Mike. We saw it in the first quarter. Knicks had no leadership. They were getting blown out. Once they found a leader, they were able to get back. A tenacious defense, good dishing.
Now, Walt Clyde Frazier brought up a lot of great points right there. The Knicks, the point guard basically establishes what direction the team is going in offensively, and pretty much the tempo of the whole game. You know, the point guard basically, you know, kind of establishes the tempo of, you know, how we're going to be defensively and offensively. And you really, you know, even though Fizdale wants to go positionless, you know, you still need someone to set the tone, basically. And, you know, you got to take Clyde Frazier's, you know, kind of his intuition. You really got to take it in stride, because, not in stride, but you really got to take it for what it is, because this guy is one of the best guards to ever play, especially for the Knicks. And he's a Hall of Famer, and he's an NBA champion, so he knows what it takes. So, you know, just to recap, you know, basically all this confusion with Frank, I feel like the fan base sometimes in the media is kind of forcing this guy to be something that he's not. And he's not a point guard. This guy can play great defense. You know, over the next few years, especially this year, he's going to get a lot of experience. He's probably going to develop into, like, you know, his own offensive stride. You know, eventually I believe he could be like I don't want to say like a better Matt Barnes, or like, you know, a Tony Allen type. But Frank can definitely be utilized in our team, just not as the point guard. Now, he can guard anyone from the point guard all the way to the small forward. That's something that we can utilize, because in today's NBA, guys have to be able to mark multiple positions. And this is where we can really utilize Frank. But, you know, we've only played 2 preseason games. We'll see, you know, Fizdale's lineups for the final 3 games. But like I said, going along the season, our expectations of Frank should be, you know, we can utilize him in his true nature. We don't have to force him to be something that he's not. But, you know, this is your guy, Marcellus Ease. Hopefully, you know, let's just start some dialogue, man. You know, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. You know, there's a lot of confusion, because half the people, you know, everyone runs into is like, oh, Frank is our point guard. And the other half is like, I don't know, man. I don't know. He doesn't really look like a point guard. But, you know, it doesn't mean that he's whack. It doesn't mean that he's trash. He can't play ball. It's like, you know, we can utilize him for his true nature. So let me know what you guys think. There's also a playlist below. Check it out. New York City artists. Pretty dope. And y'all stay safe. Peace.